Make sure you forget that you couldn't go to church. He's got to make sure that you forget that while you couldn't go to your restaurant, you go get a lap dance or gamble your life savings away. He needs you to forget how much those rules made no sense at all. He needs you to forget that. And welcome everybody to another amazing episode of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider. I thank you guys so much for joining me today. We've got a very important topic to cover. The dictator-in-chief, Andy Beshear, has declared he's running for governor again. We're going to talk about what are his chances and how much has his governorship sucked and why I just called him the dictator-in-chief. Before we dig into that, please like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, you can help out the Treasurer's Race at C4KY.com. 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 You can donate there. You can help us out there. Of course, you can always help out by sharing the videos, sharing about the candidacy and things like that. And that certainly is a big help as well. And I appreciate it. I appreciate your guys' help. You know I feel it. I feel it right here. And I know you guys appreciate what we do. But without further ado, let's jump into this episode. So today, as I'm recording this, and I'm recording this on Monday, December 5th, Beshear declared today that he is running for governor. Again, no real shock there. He probably won't face much for a primary challenge. Right now, the only person challenging him is the perennial candidate, Jeff Young. Jeff Young, if for those of you who don't remember, was just the Democrat nominee for Congress against Andy Barr. I believe that primary might be the first election Jeff Young has ever won. In fact, I believe Jeff Young has ran for office consistently and constantly. He is a definition of a perennial candidate as far as that goes. You never know what party he's going to pop back up into. But just to kind of go through Jeff Young's history. So I don't want you thinking he's going to actually maybe possibly beat Andy Beshear. That's not going to happen. I'm not even sure he would be a big upswell there either, as far as that goes. So let's dig into it. So he ran against Andy Barr in 2022 after beating out Chris Priest by about 1,700 votes in that primary. Before that, he ran against Andy Barr again, but this time he ran against Andy Barr as a Republican in the primary in 2020, where he got 2,700 votes. Before Jeff Young ran against Andy Barr in the so remember, he was a Democrat in 22. Now in 2020, he's a Republican. Before he did that in 2019, he ran as a Democrat for governor. I was in 2019 against, so for those keep track at home, he's not running in 23, but he ran in 22. He ran in 2020. There's no elections 2021, or I bet Jeff Young would have found something. In 2020, he ran for Congress as a Republican. Now, the year before that, 2019, he's running as a Democrat against Andy Beshear in that primary. Of course, he only pulls 8,900 votes to Andy Beshear's almost 150,000. So I think he kind of took that one away. Then in the Republican, and then in 2018, he ran again for, that's right, 2018. So 2019 he ran, 2018 he ran for Congress as a Democrat this time, pulling all of 1,574 votes. And then rewind, so that's 2018. Okay, now moving on. In 2016, he ran once again as a Democrat for the 6th Congressional District. Did a little bit better there than normal, 15,772 votes. Then in 2015, okay, Jeff Young ran against Jack Conway for governor in 2015 in the Democrat primary. Then in 2014, he ran for the 6th Congressional District. Okay, 2013, no elections. He probably would have ran for something. 2012, he ran for Kentucky House of Representative District 45. He did pretty good for a third-party candidate. He ran as a Green Party candidate, pulling in 8.7% of the vote. There was no Democrat in that election. And that was 2012. Ballotpedia doesn't go farther back than 2012. So once again, the guy running against Andy Beshear in the primary for governor, he's ran in 2012, 2014, 2015, 2016. No, elections 2017. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2022, and now 2023. So he's ran in every single year you could have an election, he's ran for it. That's what you got to know. So I don't think Jeff Young, the only competitor that Beshear has, I don't think he's going to bump him off anytime soon. Call me crazy, but I just, who knows though? I think, like I said, he won his first election like ever. I'm pretty sure Jeff Young didn't even know what to do when he won that primary, but he did. And I think he was, he hung in there and he won something finally. So I guess good for you, Jeff Young, winning one election, proving that Democrats will elect a crazy person. That being stated, so Beshear's probably going to win that primary. He's going to face off in the general against whoever comes out of the Republican primary, which I'm pretty sure everybody and their mother at this point is running in. I mean, the Republican side, you've got, let's see, you've got Ryan Quarles, current ag commissioner, Mike Harmon, current auditor. You got Daniel Cameron, current attorney general. You got Savannah Maddox, state house rep. You have, let's see, you've got Kelly Craft. She's running, former ambassador there. You got Alan Keck. He recently declared. We talked about that in the last episode. We also have, I'm trying not to forget anybody, Eric Dieters. We also have Robbie Smith. He's a teacher. David Cooper. I think he's currently in the National Guard. Let's see, who else do you have running in that field? I know I'm forgetting somebody. And we have, we've got everybody and their mother. I'm sorry if I've forgotten you as a governor candidate. There's so many. It's so hard to keep track of. And we're probably going to have some more. And so whoever comes out of that primary is going to have to face off about Beshear. And most people would say immediately Beshear's going down. At least people that agree with me, people that probably listen to this podcast, fall into our camp, would look at Beshear and say, how could you like him? Right? I mean, after all, the guy's been awful. In this episode, I want to arm you to have those conversations. Okay, so why is Beshear so awful? Because people are going to ask you, what's so bad about Beshear? And you don't want to sound like a partisan, because this isn't a partisan issue. Beshear is objectively a horrible person. Beshear is objectively an awful governor. Now, a lot of people are going to be saying, what are you talking about? He's been doing a great job. He has not been doing such a great job. It's more so that the Republican legislature has done a good job fiscally because they have power of the purse strings. And I'll make my case to you, okay? So first and foremost, people want to say, look, Beshear did a good job with the old panty. And you guys know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the pan, dim, ick. And I can't say it together because I get the old warnings there on the books of face and, the YouTubes and stuff if I say the word. So I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to fall for it. But a lot of people point to how he handled that. And I always bring this up, and this is real interesting, okay? So in 2020, we had a varying different degree of, well, quite frankly, rules and regulations, something a lot of you got to know from me from my coffee shop Brood, which fought against that. And, in fact, rather than me explaining what the rules are right now, let me show you a video of what the rules were in November that I shot in November, explaining what the rules for dining was, and you tell me if this makes any sense, just to remind you.
Hey guys, Andrew at Brood, giving an update on the situation. So, we came to an agreement with the health department. Apparently, the fact that we didn't have our health license meant we were an event venue, which meant that you could, technically an event venue, as long as we didn't serve or prepare food, bring that food inside, sit and eat it. They didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that you were able to do that and that Andy had left that loophole in his mandate. So, in order to make us a restaurant again, they had to issue us back a food license, which they have. So, here are the rules. I want to make sure everybody understands. You can drink your coffee out here, okay? Now, you can't, however, drink it here because COVID knows. Now, I know also as well, when you go buy your coffee at Starbucks, in Kroger, or in the mall, you can drink your coffee while you are checking out and shopping and looking at merchandise. However, because we aren't Starbucks, apparently, we have a different rule. So you can't drink your coffee while you're looking at merchandise. However, you can still, as long as you're not drinking, sit and work. But if you gotta drink your coffee, you gotta get up, you gotta walk over here, and you can drink here. In fact, actually, this table right here, you can drink here. You can drink as long as you're leaning to the left side of or the right, however you're sitting. That's fine. Cannot, though, eat or drink in that table as well. Okay. So, that's just to let everybody know what the rules are as far as it goes on. This goes on for the next several days until he lifts the indoor seating rules. Once he lifts the indoor seating rules, we will be able to open up supposedly to 50%, as he's saying he's supposed to do in 4 days. I really hope he isn't lying about that. I really hope he understands where restaurants are coming from and how we're all pushing back and responds to that in the right way. However, if he doesn't open, stay tuned.
Now, as you can tell, that is a pretty confusing set of rules there, but not to be outdone. Just a few days later, this is what the rules were. Once again, I shot this at the time.
All right. Indoor dining has been opened again. Mandate's been lifted about dining indoors. That doesn't mean you don't have any rules to follow. So, I want to make sure you all understand. First thing is you're limited to a 50% capacity. Because 51% is 1% too much COVID, and obviously everybody will die if 51% of people come into a restaurant. Now, you can dine in, though you do have to wear your mask right here, just like this, until you get your items here and you sit down and you can eat. You can take it off, though. You don't have to fish underneath the mask. So you can't eat. However, you can't, mask on or off, sit here at like a bar and eat. I'm unclear on if they're like Waffle Houses or diners, if you're sitting at the counter, that's the same thing. I don't know if it's the proximity to the other people that's the issue, or if it's the height, like COVID's is not down here, but if you're eating up here without a mask on, COVID's here, but it's not here. I'm unsure of what the science is here on this one, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm happy we can at least come out, go out to bars again, and hey, get a drink.
Now, before all this, Beshear had us shut down the state. In November, he had us shut down, where indoor dining restaurants and everything else weren't supposed to be serving inside and allowing people to sit down and stay. Now, of course, I wasn't having that. We stayed open. We said, look, we cracked a garage door. They said, no, that doesn't count. And I said, you know what? I can't afford to close. So we stayed open and we fought back on that issue. But part of the reason we fought back was, quite frankly, it was pretty clear to us there were no lives being saved. On top of the fact that at that time, my main customer base, of course, 30 and so or under, we'd seen like 3 deaths in the entire state from the vid there, and in the entire state, and that was my main group. So obviously grandma's not coming out to a coffee shop. I was so confused over that. But on top of that, you could tell it wasn't as serious as they said it was, because look what they left open. So while I couldn't serve coffee legally, I mean, we did it and we fought back as we covered, because we said no, because this is ridiculous. But putting that to the side, while I couldn't serve coffee, let's take a look to see what was open.
Well, I've got a sitter for the sun tonight, so I decided to make one more stop to make my point. I'm outside of Deja Vu. It's quite clearly open. Several cars over there. Now, I'm not going to go inside because I respect my wife and only have eyes for one woman. However, I am told that if you go in there, you can get lap dances. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how you give a socially distanced lap dance. But apparently, the governor has decided that this is okay. You can go in there and get Destiny to dance on you, but you can't drink a cup of coffee at Brewed because, you know, we got to keep our masks on. I don't know about you guys, but it certainly seems like the height of hypocrisy to me. It certainly seems arbitrary, to say the least. And it begs the question, what is this all really about?
The state has deemed as perfectly safe. I am gambling away. I don't have much money, put in $20. And on my way in, I pass by, of course, every single handicap spot's filled. A lot of gray out here on the slots. Remember, guys, most at risk are over the age of 50. But yet the state has seemed worthy to leave this open. Because quite frankly, they can't afford to close it. See, they've deemed these lives are expendable because they need the revenue. When you want to stay open because your family needs the revenue, however, it's a problem. It needs to be fixed. Look at that. Can't stop winning. So as you could see and listen, at the time, what was open was strip clubs and casinos, and abortion clinics, of course, were open. And let us not forget that at one point during this pandemic, before the Supreme Court finally told him no, Andy Beshear forbade us from going to church. A order that he then followed up by using KSP to go out and harass churchgoers. Go out and harass them. And he was only stopped from prosecuting those people, or he was threatening to force them with house arrest, basically. And the only thing that stopped him from doing that was the Supreme Court stepped in. Something that clearly he had gone out of control. Now, what the real kick in the pants is, you guys want to know what the real kick in the pants is? I looked this up today. So in 2020, okay? In 2020, when he was putting these rules and regulations, and this is how you know. This is how you know it was all just BS. And they are just making up as they go. And they didn't actually care. It's just an excuse for power. Because right now, this year, in 2022, have we had a lockdown? Have we had a lockdown in 2022? Of course not. Nope. We haven't had a lockdown in 2022. None at all. Restaurants and businesses were allowed to fully operate. There was no hindrances there. There was maybe some school hiccups a few times. Was there any lockdowns? None at all. But yeah, let me tell you this. You guys want to know what the case count was at its peak in 2022? 14,928 cases. That's right. That was the 7-day average. 14,928 cases. You know what it was in 2020? When you couldn't go to church? And when I couldn't serve coffee? You know what it was? 4,200. That was about the peak 7-day average during that time, 4,200 cases versus 14,928 cases. Now, you may say, well, Andrew, it's because the outcomes have gotten better. Maybe they have overall. But remember, we were regaled about how every death mattered. And any kind of pushback at all we were giving on it was simply because, well, we hated our fellow man and wanted to kill grandma. In 2020, the peak 7-day average of deaths was 35. You guys want to know what it was in 2022? 40. 5 more. Not only did we have more deaths, but we also had way more cases. And yet no lockdowns, no mandates, no rules. Not even for 30 days. He didn't even ask for it. Why? Because it wasn't polling well. And so he's decided, well, never mind. I think I'll go ahead and not do this. I'll go ahead and not put in place any mandates, only further proving the fact that he was wrong to do it in the first place. And I hold you this, and I said this at the time, I'll continue to say this. We did not save lives. We traded them. We lost people due to suicide and overdose. We shortened people's quality of lives. Our kids can't read or do math and have bad social skills. Mental health is on a steady increase. We won't see the damages of Beshear's overzealous policies for years and years to come. Despite all that, to this right now, if he really wants to say, well, every life matters and everything else, if he really believed that, why isn't he fighting tooth and nail to lock us back down now? Because it's court of public opinion. Because election time is coming up. He's got election time coming up. And he's got to make sure you forget all those things I just showed you. He's got to make sure you forget that you couldn't go to church. He's got to make sure that you forget that while you couldn't go to your restaurant, you go get a lap dance or gamble your life savings away. He needs you to forget how much those rules made no sense at all. He needs you to forget that. And people are doing it. And they're starting talking about what are the goods? So let's go outside the pan. Let's talk about some of these other issues. Let's get outside of the backdoor mandates and vaccine mandates and all those other things. Let's get away from all that. Let's just talk factually. Okay? All right, talking factually here. Some other things. First off, Beshear's lawsuit happy. Let us not remember HB 1, where he injunctified the legislature after a law was passed, and even the Kentucky State Supreme Court, which is pretty liberal, was pretty confused on what exactly was being injunctified there and quickly overturned that. On top of that, he sued the ag commissioner because the legislature passed a law stating that the ag board would be appointed by the ag commissioner, not by the governor. He got upset about that. He got upset that the control over the contracts, final arbitration contracts, he sued the current state treasurer, Allison Ball. He has sued her for a law that the legislature passed saying that final arbiter of contracts goes to the treasurer and not the governor's office anymore. And every step of the way, as he's suing on issue after issue, one, he's not going to the legislature to even try to work with them. There's no bipartisanship in the Beshear administration. You can trust me on that. It doesn't exist. The man is petty. As obvious from the fact that years later, after he's been proven wrong, after he's not locking us down now, despite the numbers being higher, after science has proven that shutting down restaurants was a bad call and keeping our kids out of school was a bad call, he is still in court, still trying to take away my licenses to operate my business. I'm dead serious. We're still in court. We've had to sue him in federal court. These cases are all ongoing. And they're all based upon a simple idea that somehow we violated something because at the time he thought something that turned out not to be true. If you think I'm lying that it wasn't true, go back and listen to the court cases. I'm not kidding you. The state epidemiologist in the court cases admits that the science has changed. And actually what we were doing wasn't causing a threat by when we decided to stay open. It wasn't causing a threat. But the science has changed. So what we need to do then is we need to go ahead and we'll still punish him for creating the actual punishment is based around we created an unsafe environment because of the vid and the pandemic and everything else and staying open, even though they then admit we didn't, but because they thought we did at the time, we should still be held accountable for it. And of course, they're violating state statute too, as they're expending money and forcing mandates after the state legislature has passed a law saying he shouldn't. But take all that, take it out of here. You got the constant lawsuits. That's why I called him the dictator Andy at the beginning. Because he refuses to give up any power at all. He wants it all. He wants it all. Even when it's not even constitutional, he wants it. And then, in order to continue to have you support him, he does this. Now, as I'm talking, for those of you listening in the audio-only version, you can't see this. But as I'm speaking right now, there are rolling images of Andy Beshear doing one of the grossest things, in my opinion, that an elected official can do. See, what he's doing in these photos is he's handing out a big old check. This is a couple $1 million on it or something like that. And these are checks for public service works. So things like upgrading new sewer system or building out power or broadband or, here's a disaster relief for Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky. And a judge executive filled me in on this. So the governor's office calls, and if you want the money, you have to do this. And I'm dead serious. There once was a judge executive that explained this to me, that they went out, they did the whole ceremony with the money and everything else and the big check. And then after that, the judge executive was not nice enough to Beshear. It hurt his little feelings. He hurt Beshear's feelings. And so Beshear then refused to issue the money. Now, what's so gross and disgusting about these practices with this big old check and handing it out and making a big deal, what's gross to me at least, is that this is our money. All you're doing is doing what you're supposed to be doing with tax dollars, and that is giving it back out for public works. Tax money, by the way, that the legislature appropriated. It's like when he takes a credit, and he does this regularly. He takes credit for this $1 billion surplus or $2 billion surplus in the budget. His budget, he wanted to spend every dime of that. It was the legislature that told him no and put it to the side, and now he wants to take credit for it. And once again, as he's handing out these checks, he wants credit for it. And all these far left liberals, they eat this up. They're like, that's good stuff. Oh, look at him. He's so loving and caring. He's taking our money essentially at gunpoint, because if you don't pay your taxes, who shows up? And then handing it back out, wants a parade in the process. He wants a special event in the process for him giving us back our money to complete the kind of work that government is supposed to supposedly do in the first place. On top of that, he sits here and he forwards these corporate welfare ideas where he's handing out millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to private corporations. Corporate welfare. And of course, his Democrat base cheers him for it. They're so happy that he's giving money. I thought Democrats were supposed to be against giving money out to the richest among us. Our tax dollars out. But of course, that changes the moment the person doing it has a D next to their name. It's okay. Let's celebrate it. Andy Beshear continues to enjoy a pretty high approval rating. And that is because people forget. People forget he told you not to go to church, or maybe they didn't really care enough about church to fight for it in the first place. Sad. Sad state we live in, that'd be the case. Or maybe they forgot. Fun fact, Kentucky was the only state that said chiropractors were non-essential, and neither were dentists. Maybe they forget about that. They forget about shutting down chiropractors and dentist offices. Maybe they forget about the fact that there are more cases and deaths in 2022 than there was in 2020. But yeah, you don't see a lockdown in sight. But yet then, lockdowns everywhere. But he was just doing his best. That's what they would say. He's just doing his best. My 10-year-old son is doing his best. I don't need doing his best from a governor. I need a governor to get the job done that they're supposed to do in a constitutional manner. And then most recently, we had the biggest pandering of all, where he wrote the executive order for medical marijuana. Whether you agree or disagree with medical marijuana, you should be able to agree that a governor shouldn't just write an executive order. It's not legal. On top of that, it leaves people questioning about what they're supposed to do and what do they do. It's not a good situation to be leaving anybody in where they don't know what the law actually means. On top of that as well, on top of the policy side of that, on top of the fact that he is constantly grabbed for power, on top of the fact that he's petty, on top of the fact that he's been found unconstitutional on many things, on top of the fact he's locked people down, shut them up and everything else, he is very far left on the social issues. There's nothing moderate about the guy. But yet, here's some of your more moderate Republicans defend him. See, this is what we have to watch for in Kentucky when it comes to the governor's election. Kentucky for a long time was a blue state. Many people that are now Republicans historically have voted Democrat before. It's not as hard as one may think to get them to vote Democrat again. That's why in 2023, regardless of who comes out of that primary, we've got to be willing to stand up and say we've got to inform our neighbors. We've got to put in the work. Because Beshear will do his montage of checks like I just showed you handing out. And he'll talk about all his accomplishments that really belong to our Republican legislatures. That's what he will run on. He'll run on what they should be running on. And it's up to us to remind our neighbors, to push them in the right direction. Because I tell you this much, and people say this all the time in politics. They say, well, I talked to him once. He's a nice guy. You know who's known for being a nice guy? Joe Biden. And when the Antichrist comes, he'll be a nice guy too. Well, guys, that's what we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, like, comment, share, subscribe, donate to the Treasures campaign at c4ky.com. That's c4ky.com. I thank you guys so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.